first, leaderless and rudderless. That's the focus of tonight's Angle.
The biggest problem here rests with Donald Trump and his vice presidential candidate as to whether they're going to be big enough to accept the results of the election.
This is probably the most important election in our lifetime, and we have to make sure that we get it right.
I'm concerned about what they're going to do.
Well, those are all fake, right? And as the Angle predicted, the Democrats were just projecting. They couldn't deny Trump's win, not the size of it this time, but they still won't concede in that Pennsylvania Senate race won by Republican Dave McCormick.
Across our Commonwealth, close to 7 million people cast their votes in a free and fair election. Our county election officials will finish counting those votes just like they do in every election. The American democratic process was born in Pennsylvania, and that process will play out.
It's a shock with that energy level that he didn't immediately get reelected. Well, he's just another Democratic election denier. There's a whole trail of them. So what happens when the so-called threat to democracy wins a Democratic majority? Not just the Electoral College, but makes historic gains with other groups and wins the popular vote as well.
Mr. President, is Trump still a threat to democracy?
And if Trump really had fascistic impulses, it would be kind of odd for Biden to have invited him to visit the White House tomorrow, right? Well, of course, this is why this was always a vicious and desperate lie. But still, the propaganda did have some effect. According to AP VoteCast, about 2/3 of Harris voters said the future of democracy was the most important factor for their votes. Apparently, groceries didn't matter. And 9 out of 10 were concerned that electing Trump would bring the country closer to authoritarianism, say the people who want us to eat bugs. Again, all based on lies. Trump never used the DOJ to attack his political opponents. He never flooded the country with illegal immigrants to wipe out your votes or, fought against requiring IDs to vote, all of which compromises our democratic system. Which is why it should not surprise anyone that the same voter survey also demonstrated that 1 in 3 Trump voters cited saving democracy as their primary motivator. And of those, 8 in 10 of the Trump voters felt electing Harris would bring the country closer to authoritarianism. How interesting. And given Kamala's own record and her own well-documented views, those fears were well-founded. Thankfully, enough of you dismissed the anti-Trump smears and saw Harris and her puppet masters for what they are: threats to our freedom, to our economy, and to our way of life. But like mercury, remember what used to fall out of an old broken thermometer? The Democrat machine will reconstitute itself. And to do that effectively, they're wrestling over what went wrong. And at times it's gotten fairly brutal. Bernie Sanders smashed the out-of-touch party bureaucracy that lost the working class, saying in a statement, "Will the big money interests and well-paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lesson from this disastrous campaign? Probably not." No, that's a safe bet. But if there is a real effort to redefine the party, the progressives, they're worrying about being sidelined. And if they are worried, if they are sidelined, they have no one but themselves to blame. They are all sellouts. And Bernie's kind of a sellout, too, because they compromised their anti-war cred by standing mute when Liz Cheney became Kamala's de facto running mate. But now they're trashing Democrats who pivot from more radical positions?
I think that a lot of voters really don't like fake people. If during the entire time in campaign season, you're saying that you're down with trans people or the LGBT community, and then you lose an election, and then the next day you say all that stuff was wrong. I actually think what people are more upset about is someone was doing something they didn't believe and just saying something.
So articulate. Now, AOC is grousing about people like Congressman Seth Moulton, who post-election claimed that his party had gone too extreme, saying that I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or a formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. Well, that kicked off the family feud. Grab the popcorn.
I wonder then what your response was to Congressman Seth Moulton, who suggested this week that Democrats need to change their approach to transgender issues.
I just find that to be an offensive comment, actually. I don't think that just trying to instill fear and joining a party that is instilling fear in people is the right way to go about this.
Well, it's about time we saw some cracks in the Democrat wall, the monolith. Past the junior mints.
I do want to give you a chance to explain your comments because you know they have faced backlash.
The backlash I've received proves my point that we can't even have these discussions as a party. Instead, we have a wing of our party that shames us, that tries to cancel people who even bring up these difficult topics, and frankly, shames voters.
Well, given the inroads that Trump has made with young voters, Latino and black voters in urban America, even some in California, what the heck can Democrats offer? Abortion and saving democracy did not get it done. So why will it get it done in 2028? And given the epic failures of policy and messaging, who's left in the party with any credibility and any influence? Now, after the Trump win, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries sounded like he's auditioning for something.
We have problems that we have to solve. We've got to make sure, of course, that we fix our broken immigration system and we secure the border. We have to make sure that we lower costs and grow the middle class. I think we're going to have a family conversation that needs to be clear-eyed, candid, and comprehensive to figure out what happened on election night.
Well, that's a tall order. But with Kamala going down in flames, with the Obamas, they're getting burned, with Pelosi getting old, Democrats need someone to lead them. And when the bench isn't really deep, well, Jeffries actually becomes a viable candidate. Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett calling Jeffries the ultimate point guard with on-court discipline. Now, of course, in this Democrat regrouping period, let's not forget the guy who Kamala stupidly passed over, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, a very talented politician. He's a lot more likely than California liberal Gavin Newsom to gain traction, and we can only hope that Democrats may look at Mayor Pete for something important. Talk about a train wreck. Yes, that's a DOT joke. Good luck with Pete. Anyway, this parlor game is going to continue for years. I can't wait to watch it unfold, and someone new could emerge with just the sort of passion we need.
Y'all need to leave me the alone because I got one more cigarette in me before I start lighting up. All right? And that's word to the United States of mother America. Yeah.
You never know. She has a very big TikTok following. And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.